morning, boys and girls. Today I thought we'd take some time away from math and I would just spend a little bit of time talking about my family and in particular my two crazy aunts. Now, I know I spoke about my Aunt Minerva to some of you already, but I'm going to just review that, talk about her a little bit, and then I'm going to add some information about her crazy sister, Sally. And so I'm just going to show you a picture of them and then we'll go back and we'll talk about it again. So these are my aunts. This is Sally and this is my Aunt Minerva. You can see how crazy she is. And in a second, I will explain to you why exactly she's making that face. So we'll go back to this picture after I tell you a little bit about them. Okay, so these are my crazy aunts. This is their rocking chair. That's why I brought it up from the basement in order to set the mood for what I'm about to tell you. Both of them are spinsters, and if you don't know what that means that they never got married. And I, for one, think that there's a very good reason for these two sisters to never get married. The first problem was with my Aunt Minerva, very, very sweet, well, maybe not really, very, very interesting kind of person. She has very strong likes and dislikes, and you can never really figure them out. So this rocking chair, she hated it. She didn't ever want it. In fact, she didn't really like chairs. When she got older, she kind of liked her wheelchair, but mostly she liked sitting on the floor. That's where Aunt Minerva felt the most comfortable. Problem is, we could never get her up off the floor once she got down there. So she got a little bit better when she got older and she would agree to sitting in her wheelchair. She had very, very strong likes and dislikes for food too. She loved apples, but hated oranges. Could not stand them. She didn't like cantaloupe. She didn't like watermelon. She liked blueberries and strawberries, but she didn't like plums or peaches. Let's see, what else? If I talk about food, what she liked. She didn't like steak, and she didn't like pork, and she didn't like chicken. She liked beets. She ate a lot of beets. Most people don't like beets, but she did. She didn't like beans, but unfortunately her sister did, but that's another story that we'll get to shortly. Anyway, on our next Zoom call, if you think about some things that maybe my Aunt Minerva liked and that she didn't like, we can go through and you can ask me at the very beginning of our Zoom call. And we'll find out more about Aunt Minerva. Then maybe if we ever get back together again, we can have an Aunt Minerva party as one of our parties for filling the penny jar for Wordly Wise Words. That's what I was thinking. Having an Aunt Minerva party might be very, very fun. So, okay, let's go back to this. Let's go back to the picture. Aunt Minerva looks so silly, and if you can look really carefully at her, then you can see that she's making a funny face. And you might think that's because my Aunt Minerva is funny. That is not true. She's making a funny face because see our Aunt Sally right here? Looks so innocent, looks so sweet. If you looked at both of them, you'd say, oh, she's definitely the good sister. Well, let me tell you about her. She is sweet. She is very kind. Unfortunately, she has this problem. And the problem is, boys and girls, that she farted all the time. And the woman stunk. Again, she looks innocent. But this is why Aunt Minerva is making this face. She couldn't help it. She would just kind of giggle and say, ooh, sorry. But the entire house smelled. When I was little, my parents would say we were going to the aunt's house. I would scream and cry and beg not to have to go. Not because I didn't like them, but because it would actually make me gag. And I would feel so uncomfortable. And when I got older and I complained about going, my parents said, well, why don't you bring a friend? And I was horrified. I could not explain to a friend what that horrible smell was. But as I got even older than that, explaining seemed like a better option than having to go there and suffer alone. As long as I had a friend, I could go outside for a little while and we could run around. My mother used to say that Aunt Minerva had so many good qualities that we needed to just try to ignore it. And I never understood how people could ignore something like that. But as I got even older, I was able to ignore it because she was sweet and she needed my help. Very often I wore a face mask. I know nowadays everybody wears face masks. Back then they didn't so much. But then I became a teacher and I realized something. I realized that my Aunt Sally's issue could actually help the students I was teaching. And when I realized that, everything became wonderful. So what I'm going to tell you is, guys, excuse my poor Aunt Sally. She's very nice. She's very kind. And she's going to help us remember something important in math. And all you have to do is remember this phrase. Guys, excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We'll talk more about it when we are on our Zoom call. But if you can remember this phrase, guys, excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you will be a prize-winning math student. So once again, we'll take a look at the aunts. And when we meet again, we'll talk about Aunt Minerva and the things she likes and she doesn't. And we'll talk about this sweet, dear Aunt Sally. And we'll remember the phrase, guys, excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's all for now.